G'day guys and welcome to the Rugby Podcast show for episode number 2. We are in for an absolute cracker of a show and it's going to be an absolute ripper. But before we start, some breaking news. Andre Pollard has replaced Malcolm Marx, who was out of the workout due to a knee injury that he sustained in training. It's a devastating blow for the Springboks because they have a massive game this Sunday, and I think it's a game of the tournament so far against the Irish. Now that's gonna go anywhere, but we'll talk about that in the preview show later on. But yeah, Andre Pollard places Malcolm Marx. Now, I think it's a great thing for a guy like Marty LeBock, for example, to come to that team and really give him that knowledge that Andre Pollard's got of crucial experience in games. I think it's a wise move from the South African coaching staff. Actually, it's a very wise move. What a World Cup it's been so far, eh? I thought the Minnows have stood up really well. I was really impressed with Chile against Samoa, even though Chile lost 43 points to 10. Again, they were just absolutely outstanding for the first 20 minutes. They owned it. The heat, it's taken a while especially in the heat, for the bigger teams to get used to it. I noticed that with Japan against Chile as well, and particularly Portugal against Wales. In that heat, it takes a lot of time to build up that endurance and that resilience in there. And where was I going with that? And it takes a while for teams to get used to that heat over there. Portugal. I said Portugal was superb against the Welsh, led by Samuel Marquez, their scrum half. He was bloody brilliant. The way that he sparked the Portuguese flair, their flamboyance was outstanding. He was just quick to those rucks. Kicked really well, put the ball into space. Just an all-round great game from him. And it's great to see that Portugal really pushing Wales. And if it wasn't for a try disallowed, they would have been in the lead there, I thought. Here's something, guys. Would you call Fiji a minnow nation now? I'll put it out there. I don't think they are a minnow nation anymore. The way that they've been playing over the last few weeks, and in particular against England, and before the World Cup started, they're right up there now. They're not a dark horse anymore. They're a definite contender as well. And I think it's been the likes of the Fijian Drua in the Super Rugby Championship, where they have just absolutely flown off the radar, and have just really done wonders for them, I think. I thought that Tonga were a little bit disappointing as well. They had a few injuries, but again, that was their fitness in the end, I think. That was the key to that. But I think 59-16, that's a pretty filling scoreline. But I don't think it was a reflection of how the game went myself. The All Blacks are back to winning ways. They played superbly against Namibia. Ran them off the park. Even though I thought Namibia played an outstanding game, I thought that the All Blacks were just a class above, and even though they're expected to win, I think the New Zealand public really needed them to get back to their winning ways, and they did. They did just that, which goes to my player of the round. Now, it was a tough one, because he had some great honourable mentions here. Leicester Whanganoko was one. Samuel Marquez from Portugal, Jose Lima from Portugal, Luis Rees-Zammit from Wales, Rodrigo Fernandez, Marcelo Tobella, Lavini Botia from Fiji, again, he was outstanding. Wasea Navakaselu, the captain, Simone Kuravilli, the halfback from Fiji, Nicolas Vitela, the 9 from Uruguay, and Grant Williams from South Africa, and Willie LaRue as well. But the player of the round, I'm going to give it to Cam Roigard. Now you're probably thinking that why are you going to give it to him? That was against Namibia. But again, he's the difference for the All Blacks on attack, I reckon, at the moment. The way that he's playing right now is superb. He reminds me in 2015 when they had the likes of Nehe Milner-Skudder in there, where he was a bit of an unknown. And if Cam plays or keeps playing the way he does against the tougher nations like the Springboks, like the Irish in the quarterfinals and semis, and against England maybe and Argentina, then I think he will do really, really well, and I think he could be the breakout player of the tournament if he keeps playing the way he does. Now, the difference between the top nations and the minnow nations in the tournament have been the eras. I thought. I think it's like the difference is no errors or mistakes, so drop balls, and also at least penalties at the breakdown. Because again, you saw like Portugal, like Uruguay, for example, against the French. I forgot to mention them. Uruguay were outstanding against the French, and I found it odd that the French crowd booed the French off the field a little bit. I found that odd. But again, it's the French for you. But they, again, built those really well. Were unlucky, but it's just that little, like that extra 1% that costs Uruguay the game, I thought. Otherwise, they were in it. Their endurance was superb. Their whole front row was outstanding. But yeah, that's the difference between the top nations and the small nations. I think will be the eras and the team's ability to build the phases and to build that continuity. And that's why I've got Ireland, South Africa, France as my favourites for the World Cup. But you can't count the All Blacks or England now. Yes, England. I think England, at the moment, the way they're playing, in particular in World Cup, I know it's some would call it modern rugby, but for me, I would call it precision rugby. They're doing the little things right as well, and that's why I've got them in there as one of the favourites for the World Cup. That's what else we got? Oh yeah, the game of the round so far. Now I've got 2 games of the round here. I've got Australia Fiji. Now they were awesome, Fiji, weren't they? Now this is a bit controversial here, but you kind of need Australia to be competitive for rugby. I think that it's a new side. When I saw the side, that was a lack of experience. But I can see what Eddie Jones is trying to do here with this current group of players. He's Eddie, if you've seen this, yeah, I sort of know what you're trying to do here. But yeah, you've got, I think, particularly in a World Cup, you've got to have that experience for me. You've got to have the likes of Michael Hooper, Reece Hodge. Now, Reece Hodge was the biggest shock for me, because up until series just gone in the autumn. I thought they were like he was one of the players to watch. I thought, and Quay Cooper as well. Carter Gordon again, he's a good young player, but it would have been nice for him to have that Quay Cooper likes there. But credit to Fiji though. As I said before, Wasea Navaselu, their captain, their talisman leader, lead from the front, and they were first to the breakdown as well. I can't see an Australian side that have been under that much pressure, because again they've had the Michael Hooper, they've had the David Pococks of the world there, George Smith, a little bit further back than those guys. But yeah, they just don't have any threats at the breakdown at the moment. And I think not having the likes of Will Skelton there and Tony Latupo as well. They're both out of the World Cup as well. Paul Sagers, I think, but they'll be back for the quarters if they get there. But they've got a huge game against Wales. But credit to Fiji, I thought Simone Kuravili, their scrum half, kicked really well, and it was a bit under Fiji, wasn't it? The way that Fiji played, they went for penalty goals, which is surprising, but surprisingly good, I reckon. Because not many Pacific Island teams like to go for goal that much, but to see them do it, it was great. The other game of the round, I had Japan versus England. Again, I said earlier that England are one of the teams to watch in the World Cup, and I think they should make it go far. They scored their first try of the World Cup. It's taken them 2 games, and I think that's their. And I think they've scored 2 tries in 6 to 7 games of the World Cup. I heard something. I heard a ridiculous stat like that that I found pretty funny, actually. But I thought Michael Leach from Japan played really well. He led Japan from the front, and they were in it. They were definitely in it, and that's why I didn't want to say Japan in the minnows bracket, because I think they're one of those sides that are starting to crack it. I think I think they've got to be back in Super Rugby. I really do somehow. Yeah, I said it there first. England were precise. They were clinical when they had to be. They were nothing special. But yeah, I thought they did their job really well. Overall, it's been a great round. I thought, the minnows stood up. The All Blacks was back to their best. Fiji were outstanding. Japan gave England a bit of a scare there. South Africa also against Romania. Just was clinical. In that game on Sunday morning, it was going to be an absolute nail-biter of a game. I'm going to get up for it, of course. But I can't wait for that one. It's going to be superb. I hope you guys enjoyed that video or podcast, whatever you guys like to call it now. If there's anything that you want me to go over, any breaking news from the World Cup, any breaking news from the World Cup, any team lists that pop up from the All Blacks in particular, and we'll go to South Africa Island for this weekend as well. Will be put on here, so stay tuned for that throughout the course of the week. Over and out. Kia ora.